I didn't realize I was being stolen from. Not at first. It started with something small. So small, I almost ignored it. Every time I went out to mow my lawn, my gas can felt lighter. At first, I thought maybe I was just imagining things. Maybe I used more than I remembered. Maybe it evaporated. Maybe the lid wasn't sealed properly. But then it kept happening. Again. And again. Until one day, I picked it up. And I just knew. Backhand index pointing right, someone was coming into my backyard. And taking things that weren't theirs. That's when I stopped being confused. And started paying attention. I live alone. So you learn pretty quickly to notice when something feels off. Little details matter. Footsteps where there shouldn't be any. Things slightly out of place. Silences that don't feel normal. And my backyard? That was my space. Private. Safe. Or at least, it was supposed to be. There weren't many possibilities. It wasn't random. This wasn't some stranger hopping fences. Whoever was doing this knew where I kept the gas when I wasn't home and how to move around without drawing attention. That narrowed it down to one person. My neighbor. He was the kind of man people didn't question. Always outside. Always watching. Always acting like he belonged everywhere. Too friendly when you passed him. Too comfortable. The type who made jokes that weren't funny, but expected you to laugh anyway. I never liked him. But I also never had proof. Until I decided to get some. This was before security cameras were everywhere. So I improvised. I set up my old laptop near the window. Hooked up a basic webcam. And installed motion detection software. It wasn't perfect. But it was enough. Then I left the house like normal. Locked the door. Walked away. And waited. I didn't have to wait long. Less than 10 minutes later, I got the alert. When I opened the footage, my stomach dropped. There he was. Walking straight into my backyard. Like it was his. No hesitation. No fear. He didn't even look around. He already knew no one was watching. He picked up my gas can. Poured it into his container. And walked out. Just like that. Like it was normal. Like I didn't exist. I should have called the police. I should have confronted him. I should have done something immediately. But I didn't. Because in that moment, I realized something important. Backhand index pointing right, he wasn't worried about consequences. Which meant one thing. He thought I was weak, and that's what changed everything. Because I wasn't going to argue with him. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't even going to let him know I knew. Instead, I decided to teach him a lesson. One he wouldn't forget. I didn't move the gas can. Didn't hide it. Didn't even change its position. I wanted everything to feel the same. Familiar. Safe. Predictable. But what I changed was what was inside. Slowly. Carefully. Over several days. I replaced the contents with something else. Something that looked similar. Smelled close enough. But would destroy anything it touched. Then I played my part. I made it obvious I was leaving town. Talked on the phone near the fence. Packed my car where he could see me. Even waved goodbye. Like everything was normal. I wanted him relaxed. Confident. Certain that I was gone, but I didn't go far. I just waited. About an hour later, I came back quietly. And that's when I saw him. Standing in his yard. Pulling the cord on his lawnmower over and over again. Frustrated. Confused. Angry. The machine wouldn't start. And he had no idea why. Then he got into his car. Started it. Drove off. For a moment. It worked. And then suddenly, the engine started choking. Shaking. Failing. Until finally, it stopped. Right there in the middle of the road, I walked back into my yard. Looked at the gas can. Empty. Every drop gone. And I smiled. Because he still didn't know that this was only the beginning. The next morning, I expected anger. Maybe shouting. Maybe confrontation. Maybe even a knock on my door. But instead, there was nothing. No yelling. No accusations. No dramatic scene. Just silence. And somehow, that made it even better. Because it meant one thing. Backhand index pointing right, he had no idea what really happened. I started paying closer attention after that. Not just to him, but to everything. From my window, I could see parts of his driveway. Enough to notice patterns. Enough to understand behavior. And what I saw was a man slowly unraveling. His car stayed parked for 2 days. Hood open. Tools scattered. He kept trying to fix it himself. Frustrated. Confused. Checking things that clearly weren't the problem. Because how do you troubleshoot something you don't even understand? And every time he failed, I felt something shift. Not guilt. Not regret. Something quieter. Something colder. Backhand index pointing right control. By the 3rd day, people started noticing. In neighborhoods like mine, nothing stays private for long. I overheard small conversations. His car broke down again? That's the 2nd time this month. Something's off with that guy. I didn't say anything. I just listened. Then came the lawn. It kept growing. Getting worse. Messier. Out of control. And every time he tried to fix that mower, it failed him again. At one point, I watched him slam it to the ground. Kick it. Shout at it. Like it betrayed him. But machines don't betray people. People betray themselves. And he was just getting started. About a week later, something changed. He stopped working in the open. Started looking around more. Checking over his shoulder. Pausing for no reason. Like he felt something was wrong. But couldn't explain it. That's when I decided to push things further. But carefully. Subtly. I didn't want him to suspect me. I wanted him to doubt himself. One night, I walked into my backyard quietly. Placed the gas can exactly where it always was. But this time, I added something new. A small, almost invisible mark near the handle. Something only I would recognize. Because now, I wasn't just waiting for him to steal again. I was tracking him. 2 days later, it happened. The gas level dropped. Just like before. But this time, I smiled immediately. Because I didn't need a camera anymore. I already knew. That same week, his problems got worse. Not just mechanical. Social. People started avoiding him. Small things at first. Shorter conversations, less eye contact, quiet judgment. Because frustration changes how people behave. And he wasn't hiding it well. And that's when I realized something important. Backhand index pointing right, I didn't have to expose him. He was doing it himself. One evening, I heard shouting. Loud enough to echo through the street. I looked outside. He was arguing with someone. Another neighbor. Accusing them of something. I couldn't hear everything. But I caught one line clearly. Someone's messing with my stuff. And in that moment, I almost laughed. Because he was right. But he was also completely wrong. Now he knew something was happening. But he didn't know who. And that uncertainty? That's what breaks people. That night, I sat by my window. Watching the street grow quiet again. Everything looked normal. Peaceful. Still. But underneath that calm, something had changed. Because now, he wasn't just a thief. He was nervous. Unstable. Suspicious. And people were starting to notice. And the next step I took was the one that made sure he'd never feel safe in that neighborhood again. By now, he knew something was wrong. Not exactly what. Not exactly how. But enough to make him uneasy. And uneasy people? They make mistakes. The neighborhood felt different. Not louder. Not quieter. Just tense. Like something invisible was sitting between everyone. And at the center of it? Him. A few days later, I noticed something new. He wasn't just paranoid anymore. He was desperate. His car still wasn't fully fixed. His lawn looked worse than ever. And now, he was knocking on doors. Not mine. Not yet. But close enough. That's when I finally started hearing things. Real things. Not guesses. Not gossip. Facts. One of my older neighbors stopped me while I was getting the mail. She leaned in slightly. And lowered her voice. Be careful around him. That was all she said. At first, I didn't push. Didn't ask too many questions. But she kept talking anyway. Like she'd been waiting for a reason. He didn't just move here, she said. He left somewhere else. That caught my attention. Left? I asked. She nodded. Problems. Complaints. Missing things. And just like that, everything made sense. Backhand index pointing right, this wasn't new behavior. This was a pattern. Which meant one thing. If I hadn't noticed, he would have kept going. Not just with me. With everyone. That changed how I felt. Before, this was personal. Now, it was something else. Something bigger. Because now I wasn't just dealing with a thief. I was dealing with someone who thought he could get away with it forever. So I stopped reacting and started planning. Long-term. Carefully. Patiently. I wasn't going to scare him. I wasn't going to expose him suddenly. I was going to do something worse. Backhand index pointing right, I was going to let him expose himself. I made small changes. Almost invisible ones. Things no one else would notice. But he would feel. I slightly repositioned objects in my yard, left things out, then quietly tracked them, created situations where he thought he got away with something. But each time, it added pressure. Because now, it wasn't just about stealing. It was about uncertainty. Within days, his behavior got worse. More aggressive. More erratic. He started accusing random people. Arguing over nothing. Watching everyone like they were the problem. And people noticed. This time, not quietly. Conversations stopped when he walked by, doors closed faster, people avoided eye contact. The same man who once acted confident was now being quietly pushed out. And the best part, I never had to say a word. Then one night, everything escalated. Loud noise. Shouting. Not just one voice. Multiple. I looked outside. Police lights. Right on our street. My heart didn't race. I didn't panic. I just watched. Apparently, he accused the wrong person. Tried to confront them aggressively. It didn't go well. Someone called the police. And for the first time, he looked scared. Standing there, arguing with officers. Trying to explain something that didn't make sense. He looked completely different. Not confident. Not in control. Just exposed. And that's when it hit me. Backhand, index pointing right. I didn't need revenge anymore. The situation was handling itself. Then something unexpected happened. As the police were talking to him, he turned his head. And for a brief moment, he looked directly at my house. Not random. Not confused. Focused. Like he finally realized something. Like he was starting to connect the dots. I stepped back from the window. Heart steady. Mind racing. Because if he was beginning to suspect me, then everything was about to change. And what I did next was the only move that could protect me while finishing what I started. The way he looked at my house that night, it wasn't random. It wasn't confused. It was focused. And for the first time, I felt it. Backhand, index pointing right. He was getting close. Up until now, I had control. Every move calculated. Every reaction predicted. But suspicion? That changes everything. Because once someone starts thinking, they stop making mistakes. The next morning, I didn't look outside right away. I waited. Listened. Watched carefully. And when I finally checked, he was already there. Standing in his yard. Not doing anything. Just watching. Not the street. Not the neighbors. Backhand, index pointing right, my house. Later that day, it finally happened. A knock on my door. Slow. Deliberate. Not loud. But intentional. I paused before opening it. Not out of fear, but calculation. Then I opened the door. And there he was. Closer than ever. He forced a smile. "Hey, have you been having any problems lately?" His tone was casual. But his eyes? Searching. He wasn't asking. He was testing. I kept my expression neutral. Problems? I repeated. He nodded slightly. Yeah, weird stuff. Things going wrong. Missing. Broken. I tilted my head just enough. Not really, I said calmly. Everything's been fine. For a second. He didn't respond. Just stared. Like he was trying to read something that wasn't there. And then he smiled again. But this time, it didn't reach his eyes. That's when I knew. Backhand index pointing right, he wasn't convinced. After that conversation, things changed. Fast. He stopped being careless. Stopped acting openly. No more obvious stealing. No more visible frustration. Instead, he got quiet. Too quiet. And that silence was different. Because now, he wasn't reacting. Backhand index pointing right, he was thinking. For the first time, I felt it. That subtle shift. That awareness. Like someone might be watching me now. Not constantly. But enough. And that meant one thing. Backhand index pointing right, the game wasn't one-sided anymore. So I made a decision. Not to escalate. Not to panic. But to redirect everything. If he suspected me, then I needed to remove myself from the equation completely. Not physically, but logically. Over the next few days, I acted completely normal, stopped leaving anything valuable outside, reduced any pattern he could track. But most importantly, I did something subtle. Something indirect. I let someone else notice him. Remember the neighbors who were already suspicious? I didn't accuse him. Didn't point fingers. Didn't create drama. I just talked. Casually. Carefully. Have you noticed anything missing lately? Strange things have been happening around here. It's probably nothing, but still. And that's all it took. Because once doubt spreads, it grows on its own. Now it wasn't just in his head anymore. Backhand index pointing right, it was everywhere. A few nights later, something big happened. Not at my house. Not directly involving me. But close enough. Another neighbor reported something missing. Then another. Small things. But consistent. And this time, people didn't stay quiet. A group gathered. Voices raised. Questions asked. And guess who they started looking at? Backhand index pointing right, him. The same man who once walked around confidently was now being watched. Judged. Questioned. And I was nowhere in the center of it. I saw him that evening. Standing alone. No anger this time. No shouting. Just still. Thinking. Processing. Because now, he wasn't sure of anything anymore. Not the neighborhood. Not the people. Not even himself. And that's when I knew. It was time for the final step. The one that would end everything. Without me ever having to say a word. By the end of that week, everything had changed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But in a way that couldn't be undone. The neighborhood felt different now. Not friendly. Not relaxed. Just aware. People locked things more carefully. looked at each other a little longer, questioned things they used to ignore. And at the center of it all? Backhand index pointing right him. He wasn't angry anymore. That was the first thing I noticed. No shouting. No arguing. No aggressive behavior. Just quiet, but not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from pressure. One by one. People stopped interacting with him. No more casual conversations, no more friendly waves, no more benefit of the doubt. Even the neighbors who used to tolerate him started keeping their distance. The same man who once walked into my yard like he owned it now barely stepped outside his own door, because now he felt what I felt in the beginning. Backhand index pointing right. Watch. A few days later, it happened. The moment that ended everything. Another complaint. This time bigger. Something valuable went missing from a nearby house. Not small. Not ignorable, and this time people didn't hesitate. Authorities got involved. Questions were asked. Patterns were noticed. And when everything started connecting, there was only one direction it pointed to. Backhand index pointing right him. Not because I said anything, but because he left a trail. I didn't see everything, but I saw enough. The visit. The conversation. The shift. And then he was gone. No announcement. No explanation. Just absence. Within days, things started going back to normal. Lighter conversations. Less tension. More comfort. Like something heavy had been lifted, and no one really talked about him anymore. I never confronted him. Never accused him. Never stood in front of anyone and told them what he did. I didn't have to. Because the truth? It has a way of surfacing on its own. Sometimes I still think about that gas can. How something so small started everything, because in the end, I didn't ruin his life. I just stopped protecting him from his own actions, and once that happened, everything else followed.